Shin Godzilla or Godzilla Resurgence or Godzilla the remake from like 62 years ago is, like I said, is basically a reimagining of Godzilla. It's still, Shin Godzilla. I really like the movie. Instead of being a boring remake that tries to do something new and instead messes everything up, it actually knows what it's doing, and it's directed by one of the dudes who created Evangelion. And there is like some Evangelion or Evangel. I don't know how to say it, but Evangelion like OST in this movie. But anyways, the movie is good. Like, the people who direct this movie know their like material. Like, they know what they're doing. Like, they know they're doing a Godzilla film. They're not doing a 1970s action flick starring hot Japanese men. They're doing a Godzilla film, and they're still maintaining the message of Godzilla being like a nuclear threat to everyone. And like the message and they're making Godzilla like propaganda of what happens if we keep misusing nuclear items and weapons, and what will happen to our world if we continue using them. And this movie, not only are the people affected by it, but also Godzilla. Well, let me say what happens. So at the beginning of the movie, we get informed that there's been like a leak, like a nuclear leak in the ocean, and then they see something. And they see something move in the water, which then cuts to a bridge under the water, like getting flooded with blood. And then we get shots of like a giant tail. And it turns out that giant tail is actually Godzilla. He submerges and goes to the suburbs of Tokyo, destroying everything in sight. Godzilla. And instead of Godzilla destroying everything, it adapts to its environment and using the words of my good old buddy Chris Stuckman, metamorphosizes. Every single time there's like obstacles in Godzilla's way, his body adapts to the environment. Like, for example, when he was walking, he was running out of breath, and then we see a shot of Godzilla running, and then blood comes out of his gills, meaning that he's learning how to breathe on land because he was a sea creature. And then he gets enchanted by a tall building, which then he grows and stands in like a straight posture, and he grows elbows and fingers so he can topple over the building. So like anything bad that happens to Godzilla, his whole body, shapes, reforms, resizes, anything in Godzilla's anatomy to make him tougher. And instead of Godzilla saying, "Hey, look at this, a new upgrade, that's cool," I think the audience is supposed to feel like, "Oh, cool, Godzilla got an upgrade." But to us die-hard Godzilla fans, it's not a good thing, because you could see every single time Godzilla, goes through that metamorphosis, he's actually in pain, which is why every single time he adapts, he does a god awful screech, like his screech, which I forgot to mention in the 1954. I keep on forgetting. I need to start writing scripts for these videos. But anyway, and then basically Godzilla's theme is him roaring and stomping, and it's and the Akira Ifukube, the composer of the original 1954 Godzilla, he put on a glove, covered it in tar, and scraped it on like a viola, I think, or a cello, I don't know. And it's supposed to represent, and Godzilla's stomps are supposed to represent the bombs of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the roars represent the planes going over the site. So yeah, pretty dark, and that's basically the roar. Anyways, back to Shin Godzilla. Shin Godzilla, like Chris Stuckman said, it lacked characterization. In my opinion, everyone's right mind's opinions, Godzilla was the whole characterization. Why? Let's go through this. There's a scene in Shin Godzilla where everybody goes into an underground shelter when Godzilla's destroying everything. The U.S. drops some bombs on Godzilla, and then his whole spine starts to bleed. Blood fills the streets, and then we get like a shot from Godzilla's stomach, outside, not outside, like his belly shot, and then we see blood dripping down over his body, and then he starts roaring, and then plasma beams shoot out of his back, and he's screaming like hell, and then his stomach starts to boil up, and then he vomits all the smoke out of his stomach. And instead of, and the reason why it's this scene that really captivates everything is because while it's playing, while the scene is playing, there's no like a badass action music where like, oh yeah, look at that, Godzilla destroying everything, or like, look at these tall buildings going down by Godzilla's breath. Instead, a sad song plays. You're like, what? A sad song playing while Godzilla destroys the entire city? Yeah, I know. I was like, wait, what? Why is this scene playing like when I first saw this? And this, I'm gonna sing the song. I'm not gonna sing it, but I'm gonna read the lyrics. If I die in this world, who will know something of me? I am lost, no one knows. There's no trace of my yearning. If I die in this world, and then like a chorus sings, but I must carry on. Who will know something of me? Nothing worse can befall. I am lost and no one knows. All my fears, all my tears. There's no trace of my yearning. Tell my heart there's a hole. I wear a void, not even hope. A downward slope is all I see. I wear a void as long as breath comes from my mouth. Not even hope, I may yet stand the slightest chance. A downward slope, a shaft of light is all I need, is all I see to cease the darkness killing me. These lyrics are like literally depressing as hell, and you're like, why are these lyrics going in like a Godzilla film of anything? And I'm gonna tell you why. It's Godzilla singing, not the people of Tokyo, not a person seeing all this, not a person being suffered because, oh, my family's actually there and it's gonna create a villain backstory. No, it's Godzilla singing this song. And I'm not saying like Godzilla sings this song, like he's destroying a city, but like the song is playing in the background, And you're like, Godzilla singing this? How can a monster sing? Well, let me give you the full context. Before the league, when there was like a whole bunch of like toxic barrels in the ocean, Godzilla, which I don't want to get people confused with the 1954 version. I'm just gonna say Shin Godzilla. Shin Godzilla, ate all the chemicals. I thought it was like food, but then he changed. He turned into a giant monster that went to land and adapted. But he had a life. He had a life before he ate that. I'm not gonna say, oh, he had brothers, sisters, family. No, he had something worth living for, and now he's a threat to everyone, and he doesn't want to adapt. His body just adapts. He can't control it. Kind of like how do I say this? How to say it's like the Iron Giant. The Iron Giant is like a gun. It's like a metaphor for a gun, but he doesn't want to be a gun, But he is built for a gun, but he's not. He doesn't want to be a gun. So it's kind of like how do I say this? Pain. You don't want to feel it, but it's a part of living. And that's what Shin Godzilla is doing, but the pain is so unimaginable to him. Every single time he adapts, he's like, no, please, no, no, no. And then he does it, and he's in excruciating pain every single time. He has to adapt to the environment. And then in the scene where whenever he destroys Tokyo, whenever he barfs out the atomic breath, he's trying to take all that stuff out of his body because it's giving him pain, And the song is playing. And literally the first lyrics is, if I die in this world, who will know something of me? Which means Godzilla is a monster to everyone. Everybody sees him as a monster, but in reality, he is a troubled soul in a body that he does not want to possess. Every step he takes is pain to him. He does not want to adapt to the environment. He does not want his body to adapt to the environment, but yet he does, and it's something that he does not want to experience. And if he dies in this world, who will know something of him? They're not going to think of him as Godzilla, the poor boohoo monster that went through all this change and they should have cared about him. They're all going to think of him as Godzilla, the monster that destroyed Tokyo. They're just going to see him as a monster, not a victim being in pain. And then I am lost, no one knows, which literally translates to like what the first pair of lyrics say, that he is a lost soul. He doesn't know what's going on. He keeps on taking steps because he's lost. He wants to know where his final destination is, but no one will know of him. They're just gonna think he destroys cities for fun. There's no trace of my yearning. Again, no trace of his yearning. It means that no one is gonna find out that, oh, Godzilla was in pain the whole time. They're just gonna see him as a monster. Hundreds of years later, he'll be seen as a monster. Then he'll be seen as a monster in the future and in the present as well. And then it's the same one. If I die in this world, who will know something else? But the chorus says, but I must carry on. It means but I must carry on. It means that he is meant to adapt. His body, he is born to adapt to the environment, and then nothing worse can befall. Like literally nothing, like no pain is like no pain will be much more worse than what he's experiencing now. And all my fears, all my tears, tell my heart there's a hole. It means that besides everything that going on, anything going on is like he knows, like he's the only person that knows what's going on, not anyone else. I know it's like repeating itself, but all my fears, all my tears, tell my heart there's a hole. It's saying that he has been, mutated. His heart literally has a hole, not because of like literal like radiation, but also because his heart is empty. He does not have anyone to love, nor anyone to love him. So really he's lonely. He's a lonely, poor, trapped soul. And then the next one, I wear a void. Let's see what this says. The tragedy of the movie portrayed in the song is that Godzilla is doomed to live in a body he does not want to inhabit. His past happiness has diminished to a void in his heart. At this point, he has lost all hope in a future of terror, sadness, and eventual death is all he can look forward through his eyes of sorrow. When he says, I wear a void, it means literally he does not have a life anymore. The radiation changed his life, not in a good way. He cannot have a happy life anymore because of what has happened to him. And then, as long as breath comes from my mouth, even with all the sorrow, Godzilla still doesn't want to die. Regardless of whether the breath in the lyrics is alluding to inhaling or his atomic breath, the only way he can ensure himself from the dying is to continue the path of destruction and kill those trying to destroy him, the so-called darkness that is killing him. So, in my opinion, the darkness killing him has two meanings. One, of course, the radiation. He is in excruciating pain. It literally almost kills him going through those stages. And then to see the darkness killing me is like the people trying to destroy this monster that they don't know has feelings. And then the final evolution of Godzilla, the fifth evolution that I'm so sad we didn't get to see, because that would have been so badass. I know I literally said everything, like I said, like, oh, it's not supposed to be this badass Godzilla film, but literally, how cool would it have been to see those 9 stages? Anyways, the 5th stage, I told you, he adapts to his environment. People outsmart him. So then Godzilla says, I don't need to adapt beast to another form of a beast, to another form of a beast. I will become the one thing that seeks to destroy me. Human. So, and Godzilla was supposed to be his final adaptation, like his final evolution, a giant human Godzilla. And finally, he will be superior to everyone. But the humans stop him before he can evolve. So to some people, it might be happy that Godzilla doesn't have to go through this pain anymore. And to some Godzilla fans like me, kind of disappointed because we didn't get to see the 5th evolution. And then the movie ends with the people celebrating that they defeated the monster, and silence of Godzilla trying to evolve. It just sits still as the only sound you can hear is the wind and ashes carrying from the ground. We see people climbing up to Godzilla's tail with what I believe is a giant arm coming out of the gaping hole from his mouth. Nothing more, nothing less. Dun 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 dun.